So today we are talking about Nebula. So Nebula is our cloud managed, um, how do we always phrase it here? Cloud managed network management and deployment. Um, so it's something that we came out with a number of years back. It's designed to make installing networks easy, make managing networks easy, make managing your customers easy. Right now, as we all know, we're going through a situation here with COVID, and depending on where you happen to be located, you may be dealing with issues with COVID outbreaks, concerns about social distancing and things like that. So one of the feedback we've gotten from our partners has been, some of your employees may be hesitant to want to go on site at the customer and interact with customers, or alternately, some of your customers may be hesitant to allow you to send people on their site because of their fears of spreading COVID. So that's one nice thing here with Nebula is Nebula can help sort of deal with that. And it does that by making it so you don't have to go on site as much as you would before. And if you do have to go on site, you would spend less time on there interacting with other people. So we'll start talking now a little bit about Nebula. And I think as we go through this, you'll see how this benefits you and how this makes it easier to deploy networks and reduces the need for you to do site visits. So the Nebula solution itself is hosted in the cloud. So that's where all of your management takes place. The equipment itself has the Nebula client built in. There's no additional hardware that you need. You simply plug in the devices, they reach out to the cloud and find out who they belong to, which site they belong to, and automatically download their configuration based on that. So there's no additional software that you need. So you don't need to be hooking up, a VM machine on a PC somewhere. You don't need to be installing any special software. There's no need for cloud keys or CNAs or wireless LAN controllers or anything like that. So one of the questions we get, because this is a cloud thing, and we run into this both with our partners and with some of the end users, is concerned about privacy, right? It's cloud managed, and when we think about cloud, we think about things like Gmail, OneDrive, Dropbox, things like that, where your data is being stored on this cloud that you don't have access to. So that raises some issues with privacy concerns and things like that. So I wanted to address that now as it applies to Nebula. So Nebula, basically all of your LAN traffic stays on the LAN. All of your internet traffic goes out to the internet. None of that is going through our cloud servers. The cloud server themselves is only there to act as sort of a management interface. So the only traffic going there is management traffic. There is nothing that would normally be on the network that is going there. So because of that, there's no issues with PCI compliance. There's no concerns with HIPAA. You can use Nebula in those environments without any worries. So one of the cool things Nebula does here is it makes it easy to set up your equipment. So all Nebula hardware has a QR code. That QR code can be found on the belly label of the unit. It can also be found on the outside on the box. So because of that, you don't necessarily even need to take the hardware out of the box to begin configuring it. You simply scan that QR code. You assign that device then to your customer and to the specific site where this device is going. And from that point on, you can configure the device in the cloud just by going to nebula.zyxel.com. You don't have to power on the device. You don't have to do anything like that. You can start configuring. And in some cases, for some of the core basic features, you don't even have to have purchased the hardware yet or assigned any hardware to the site. A lot of the configuration is available as soon as you create the site in the cloud. So you can start working on configuring and setting things up before you've even settled on necessarily on the final hardware that you're going to be using, let alone ordered that hardware. So again, the idea here is it's reducing the amount of effort you need to put into it. We've had situations here where we've had customers doing hardware swaps or doing upgrades, and our Zyxel partner has had the unit shipped to their office. They've scanned the units in, and then they've shipped the units on to their end customer for the end customer to do the installation, reducing the need for any sort of site visit to do the configuration. So setting up Nebula takes just a few minutes. One of the demos I used to do back in the good old days when we traveled around and met with you guys is I would create a new Nebula account, hook up an access point, configure the access point to provide guest access using a captive portal, and I could do the entire thing in less than 5 minutes. So Nebula dramatically speeds up what's involved when it comes to setting up your systems. Again, you can log into the Nebula Cloud and start setting up your customers and their sites. Today, even without the Nebula hardware, you can start configuring things. Once the hardware is connected to power, it automatically reaches out to the cloud. It finds out the configuration it needs and it automatically applies that configuration. It automatically updates the firmware. So really smooth, easy setup process. And again, just to dwell on this here, there's no additional hardware or software required. There's no additional licenses that need to be required. So again, you don't need anything on the customer premise other than the networking equipment itself to make Nebula work. So anywhere you've got internet access, you have access to your customers, you have access to their sites. So you just simply log in through any web interface or web browser, or we also have a mobile app for Android and iOS. And in addition to setting up the core network, Nebula is designed to streamline things and make everything easier for you to set up and configure. So for instance, VPNs, site-to-site VPNs are really easy. You basically just go in, choose the sites, choose the topology you want, click apply, and we handle everything else when it comes to getting those VPN connections made. For remote users using L2TP, we now have the ability to automatically send out a script that users can then run the script and it'll automatically configure Windows, Macintosh, or iOS. Does not currently work with Android, but anything else makes it super easy to get those remote connections back into the office for your end user so they don't have to come into the office and have IT configure it. IT can simply send them the link with the script and run the script. So all updates are done over the air. Again, no reason to go on site to do firmware updates. Configuration changes are automatically pushed out within about 2 to 5 minutes of you making the change in the cloud. It will be pushed out to the device itself. Firmware updates are again handled through the cloud, and we have really big flexibility when it comes to scheduling these firmware updates. So you can configure it to deploy at different times for different pieces of equipment. You can have it deploy new firmware based on the type of equipment or just do the entire site at certain times. So that way you can schedule it to what works best to minimize downtime for your customers. So I mentioned it earlier on the slide here. We are PCI compliant. It is HIPAA compliant. This is a list of all the other laws, regulations, certifications that Nebula is compatible with. Zyxel is a global company. So what you'll see here is all sorts of different rules and requirements for different places around the world. So if you've got a multinational customer, you can use Nebula in just about any country you want without running afoul of any sort of local regulations or requirements. So Nebula was designed from the ground up to manage multiple customers and multiple sites. So the design of Nebula is done in such a way to make it really easy for you to keep an eye on all of your customers and see what's going on and very quickly get into your customer that you need to manage. There's no worrying about having to VPN into the customer's site to be able to manage things. There's no setting up port forwards or anything like that. And as I mentioned briefly earlier, Nebula itself is free. So there is no additional fee to use the Nebula service. It comes bundled in with quite a few of our products that are Nebula compatible. And it gives you the ability to manage an unlimited number of customers, an unlimited number of sites, and an unlimited number of devices in the cloud without having to pay any extra fees. So this is showing here sort of what you see when you log into Nebula. This is a list here of in our example account of each one of these listings here is a different customer. And the dashboard makes it really quickly to see if they are using the free version of Nebula, if they're using the licensed version of Nebula, which we'll talk about a little bit later, let you know the status of those licenses, how many sites they have available, and if there's any sort of connectivity issues with any of the deployed devices. So you simply then choose your customer. Then it takes you to a similar customer view where it breaks down for you all of the sites that that customer may have. Obviously, if you've only got one site, you only see one listing here. But again, it gives you a quick snapshot of what's going on in each of those sites. We also have Google Maps integration, so you can drag and drop those customer sites onto a Google Maps for a visual sort of idea of where they are geographically. And then once you choose an individual site, it takes you here to the site dashboard. So the site dashboard here makes it really easy for you to get a snapshot of what's going on your customer's network. You can see here we've got a traffic summary where we're breaking down traffic by the type of application that's using the traffic, iTunes, BitTorrent, things like that. Clients, which clients are using the most data. And then we've got a customizable dashboard here, which you can adjust which features are shown here. But in this example here, you can see how many APs are online, what their current loading is, switch status, how many of the switches are assigned to that site, how many are online. We've got the ability to go through there and see how many wireless clients are connected, how much of your PoE budget is currently being consumed, bandwidth on the WAN statistics. So a lot of stuff there. And then we make it really easy for you to jump between sites and jump between customers. We've got a simple pull down menu here up on the top. So you can group your customers by groups and then quickly jump to a different group. You can go down here and pull down a list of all your customers, jump to a new customer, and the list of all sites. So you can quickly jump to it directly to another site. So Nebula, in addition to letting you configure all of these devices, makes it really easy for you to see what's going on. So for instance, here, this is showing the wireless clients. And again, which columns are shown here is something that's fully customizable on your part, but it's showing clients that have connected over the last, I think, 2 hours here. You can see green are currently connected, red are no longer currently connected. The device name, IP address, which SSID it's connected to, the data rate, the technology, whether it's connected to B speeds, G speeds, Wi-Fi 6 speeds, etc. So you can see what's going on. We can adjust the time period here and also graph out usage over time. Going over here to your wired network, we've got consumption here, PoE consumption. So that's graph, so you can see how that's going on. You can see which ports are getting the most amount of traffic. And again, we've got this Google Maps integration. So you can drag and drop individual pieces of your network directly into Google Maps or upload a site diagram and drag and drop the individual devices directly onto that. For switch port information, we've got this screen right here. So you can quickly see by color the speed of the connection, gigabit versus fast Ethernet, the P indicating whether or not PoE is currently enabled and being used on those ports. And again, a number of different charts and ways to visualize what's going on those ports. For configuration, we make it really easy. We give you a list of all the ports. You can choose the ports you want to configure. And then it brings up one update screen here where we can apply configuration changes across all of those ports simultaneously. So that's kind of the core functionality of what you get with the Nebula free version. Now there is something called Professional Pack and there's something called Nebula Security Services. So these are value-added products that are added via a license. So I want to talk briefly about what you get with those. So first we'll start off here with Nebula Propac. So Nebula Propac unlocks additional features primarily aimed at those of you providing MSP type services and providing proactive monitoring and management of your customers' networks. So one of the things the Propac unlocks for you is a Wi-Fi health report where we chart out over time connection quality for each of your clients to make it easy for you to visualize what might be going on the network. So, maybe you don't have coverage where you need it to be. Maybe you've got, interference in some area. This helps you figure that out. We also use some AI in the back end that'll let us use this report to automatically make some changes to your network to try to solve some of these issues that you can turn on. In just general network stuff here, by going up to Propac, you get a year's worth of logs automatically stored in the cloud, whereas the free version gives you 7 days worth of logs in the cloud. Automatic push alerts, letting you know when devices and things go offline, and you can customize that. It gives you customized reports that you can set up that automatically run on the schedule that you want. It's really good for your customers if your customers are using UTM services, so you can provide them a weekly or monthly report on what's going on in their network, and you can add your logo to that report so it has your branding associated with it when it gets sent out. We have a audit log functionality here, so we'll track every configuration change made, when it was made, and which account made that to make it really easy for you to go back in time and figure out when things were changed, right? So if something just popped up within the last week, it's unlikely to be a configuration change from 3 months ago. But if there's a number of stuff done a week ago, then you can find out who made those changes and talk to them to find and learn a little bit more about what's going on in your network. Propac gives you an automatically generated topology view. So you can see which devices are plugged into which switches, et cetera, again, to help you with troubleshooting and figure out how things are currently connected on your network. And then we've got a similar view also for VPN topology for troubleshooting VPN issues. For the 2% of you out there that are doing IPTV deployments, primarily in MDU, MXU type deployments, Propac unlocks some additional features that are aimed at IPTV. It opens up some IGMP settings that aren't normally part of Nebula. It allows you to manage and monitor individual channels, and it helps generate a report that you can use to see what's going on your network. So we'll show that here. You can see which channels are being watched, how much each of them are being watched for. Um, but more importantly, we use machine learning on here to monitor those channels, help identify problems such as drop packets and what may be causing those issues, so we can give you suggestions as to what configuration changes to make to help smooth out and solve those issues with your IPTV streams. Propac also unlocks the ability here for you to use what are called configuration templates. So you can make changes across multiple sites simultaneously just by making one change in a configuration template. The ability to clone existing organizations or sites here. So again, it's something that makes it really easy for you when you're adding new equipment or adding new sites to an existing customer. You can simply clone what's already working well at another site, and then just clone that and then make whatever minor changes need to be made to differentiate it for the individual deployment there, and the ability to create backup and restore points in the cloud there. So that's it for Propac. The next thing is what we call the security pack. So this automatically, anytime you buy one of our NSG cloud managed security gateways, you automatically get 1 year of the security pack included. And it's basically our UTM subscription, right? Unified Threat Management. So it's unlocking, antivirus, IDP, content filtering, as well as a number of different reports letting you know what's going on. So we have what's called application awareness. We can recognize network traffic and figure out which applications are generating that traffic. And then we can create reports so you can see which applications are doing what on your network. Whoops, one more click there. Similar type report showing you internet utilization out on the network. And then various reports linked to those UTM services. So here's your antivirus report showing you what sort of attacks it's blocking, what those specific attacks were, which hardware on your network was being targeted, et cetera. So something really good to share with your customers, right? Because they're paying for these security services. So it's really good to show them, look, this is what we've protected you from. It makes it really easy to sell them the renewals if they're able to see what's going on and how it's benefiting them. So here's the quick summary here. Nebula management is free. Get you that zero touch deployment, firmware updates, et cetera, through the cloud, unlimited number of sites, customers, and hardware. It's not one of those things where you get the first 2 APs free and you've got to buy licenses beyond that. So that's free for you. Then the next option here is our professional pack. This can be bought as an annual license or as a one-time perpetual license. So if you know your customer is going to want these features or you're going to want these features to offer your MSP services, you can simply buy the license once and never worry about renewals. So that unlocks all these extra MSP features. It gets you more admin accounts. It stores more information in the cloud, a year's worth of cloud logging, gets you a lot of reports, troubleshooting things on there for you that get unlocked. And if you're going with the annual license and your annual license is set to expire, it simply drops back to the free version of Nebula. You're still managing all your devices in the cloud. You don't get locked out, unlike some of our competition. And then the security pack, which again, you get 1 year bundled free with any of our security gateways, unlocks application patrol, IDP, antivirus, content filtering, and a number of different security-based reports. So now let's talk a little bit about the hardware. We're not going to go in depth on it. I just want to cover here. So at the moment for Nebula, the only security gateways that work with Nebula are the NSG series. So these will all include 1 year of Nebula Propac bundled with them. That's automatically applied when they're activated, and 1 year of the UTM subscription services here for you. Now, at some point next year, I think it's supposed to be end of Q1, but we'll see. We will get our USG Flex devices will also be able to be used with Nebula or be managed in Nebula. They cannot currently be. And I think also our ATP series is expected at some point next year to also be able to be managed with Nebula. On the switch side of things, it's a little bit more confusing. So we have what our dedicated Nebula switches, the NSW series. These all include 1 year of Propac out of the box, and they can only be used with Nebula. So these are going to be phased out here, or in the process of being phased out. Going forward, everything will be either what we call Nebula Flex or Nebula Flex Pro. So Nebula Flex are switches that can be used as a traditional standalone switch, just like any switch you use today outside of Nebula, or can also be switched over into a Nebula management mode. Those items here designated Nebula Flex Pro, same situation, but it also bundles 1 year of Propac with the hardware. So when you activate a GS2220 series switch, you get 1 year of Propac points applied automatically to the site. So, and with Nebula Flex, you can always roll back and forth between Nebula and non-Nebula mode. The configurations don't transfer over, but if at some point you need to, pull hardware off of one site that's Nebula managed, move it to a different site that's not Nebula managed, you can do that with the same hardware. It's really easy to switch back and forth between modes. So anyway, for Nebula Flex, it gets you our GS1920 V2 series switches. Those are all Nebula Flex. Our XGS and XS1930 series switches, those are all Nebula Flex. And then on the Nebula Flex Pro side of things, it's our GS2220 series of switches, our GS1350 switches, and our XS3800 series switches. So most of the key switch SKUs now offer Nebula management. And then on the AP side of things, it's basically everything now supports Nebula in one form or another. Again, we've got our dedicated NAP APs, which can only be managed in Nebula, and those are being phased out. And then we've got Nebula Flex, again, can use the AP standalone or can be managed in the cloud. So that is our NWA 1123 series products, our 1300 series products, and then the new Wi-Fi 6, the NWA 110 and NWA 210, those are Nebula Flex. And then the rest of the models are what we call Nebula Flex Pro. So again, same thing as switches, can switch between standalone or cloud managed. They come bundled with 1 year of Propac out of the box. And the Pro models also can be managed with a wireless LAN controller, one of our dedicated NXCs, or the wireless LAN controller that is built in to the Zyxel series of USG, ATP, whatever firewall products. So for Nebula Flex Pro products, you've got 3 options that you can use as far as management goes. So basically anything that starts with a 5 or higher is going to be Nebula Flex Pro. And it's just about every AP we've got now. We've got one old legacy AP we're still offering that doesn't support Nebula, but basically any AP supports Nebula these days. So that, guys, is it for today's quick little webinar presentation or a little introduction to Nebula. I'm hoping with what you saw there, you saw how it smooths things for you, streamlines things, and will make it so you can more quickly deploy your network, saving you time and effort, and help reduce the need to go on site for any sort of issue, since you can troubleshoot remotely, you can configure remotely, you can update remotely. So if you're liking what you see here and you'd like to learn a little bit more, we've got 2 options for you. We do have a free demo you can log into at any point. You simply go to nebula.zyxel.com, and we actually have the credentials printed right there on the screen that you can log in with to get to the demo site. And then also, we can hook you up with a 60-day demo kit. Just reach out to your salesperson, um, David Chen or Jacob, and they can hook you up, qualify you and hook you up for a 60-day demo. You do have to be part of our partner program though. So you have to be an authorized reseller that's joined the program, but that's pretty much the only limitation there. So we can get you hooked up there. So with that, guys, that concludes today's presentation. Feel free here to send in any questions you have. I haven't really gotten any as we went through today, but feel free to send them in. Also here, my email's up there, so you can reach out to me offline. It's Sean R, for those of you just listening in, SHAWNR at Zyxel.com. Feel free to send me your questions directly. Give me feedback on today's webinar. Give me some ideas for other webinars you would like to see us put on for you in the future. Whatever it happens to be, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And still no questions are coming in. So thanks guys for joining us. I do also want to just draw your attention that we do offer a user forum on our website. So you can go there and we've got a message board set up so you can reach out and talk to other Zyxel installers, run ideas by them, stuff like that. And unlike a lot of the other, manufacturer-based user boards out there, our headquarters, R&D team, and our product management team do keep an eye on that board and often wade in to answer questions or acknowledge feedback. So it's a good way when you've got something that's not a pressing need to be able to get some support. It's also a great way to reach directly to our headquarters team to give them feedback on what you are seeing in Nebula, features you'd like to see, hardware ideas you'd like to see. So feel free to post them there. And since there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Thanks for joining us, guys. We've got a number of other webinars this month. Please join them, and hopefully we can help you sell more of our product and understand our products a little bit better. Thanks, guys.